I would like to acknowledge all Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander peoples, past, present and emerging, as I am recording on Wurundjeri country. Thank you for joining us.
Marmalade and coffee black. Lesson plans are on the stack. Ready for the students' track. Gonna find our groove.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Stranger in the Staff Room, where myself, Zoe Zammit, or as the kiddos call me, Miss Zammit, share lifelong stories as first-time teachers and answer your questions. I am beyond excited for this episode because I was expecting, our lovely community, you guys, to sort of come up with questions like, what's your favourite colour? What do you do outside of the podcast? But you guys went deep and meaningful. And I'm so here for it because, like I said on the last episode, if you'd like to check that out, even if you're not a teacher, it's a focus episode. But I am very vulnerable and transparent in that episode, and I love that this sort of backs onto it because we can keep that going. And before we get started, I just wanted to thank each and every one of you that put questions in. I have been trying to, on all my social medias, create platforms that make new teachers feel safe and related to. And this Q&A sort of call out suggested to me that that is working. But of course, if there's any sort of feedback that you'd like to give, feel free to DM me on Instagram at strangerinthestaffroom or even email me at strangerinthestaffroom@gmail.com. And as the YouTube people can see, I am recording this entire episode on video. Yay! In the podcast world, it's weird because podcasts are meant to be like makeshift radio, but now video podcasts are a thing. Look, I'm not complaining. I love having my face on the camera. I'll be real with you. But yeah, I'm just sort of experimenting with how much effort goes into editing videos and audio to see if it's doable, especially with me going into full-time work next year, which I have done all of my assessments. Yes, there won't be any random ones sprung up on me. I know that for a fact, so that is awesome, and I'm so excited. I have gotten my results back on 2 of my subjects. I just need the GTPA one now, which hopefully in the next episode I will be able to update you guys on that. I am not freaking out. You're freaking out. Oh my God. But yeah, that's basically it. So I've got a lot more free time on my hands. So I'll be experimenting more with the podcast and what can be done to bring entertainment to you guys. Yeah. And one more thing before we jump into the Q&A. As some of you might be aware, Stranger in the Staff Room has an Etsy shop. So instead of it being called Stranger in the Staff Room, it's the abbreviation, so SITSR. And I'm currently listing teacher resources, not just for the classroom, which I'll get to, but at the moment it is just the Teacher Detox Toolkit. Now, this is for teachers that want to put the self back into self-fulfillment. I've been able to make this resource so much more accessible and cheaper by just experimenting with it with this extra time that I have. And I have dropped the price by half on the printed version. And I think I've been able to take off $5 off the digital version. So that was already cheap and we have made it cheaper. So I'm so excited that that's been able to happen just before Christmas. So shameless plug, head to the Etsy shop if you are a teacher or if you have friends that are teachers and you'd like to be able to give them a meaningful, almost personalised gift that shows that you care about their professional well-being. All right, now that all the plugs are over, let's get into your questions.
Through the highs and through the lows, we're the ones who always show, building worlds and making glow the dreams that they pursue.
Alrighty, we are back, and as people watching the video can see, we have a fair few detailed questions. I think there's 6 questions that we're going to go through today. And again, a huge thank you to those who put in questions. I'm going to do this in order of how I've written it, so no particular order in terms of easier to answer, harder to answer. We're just going to go straight into it. What is one thing you aspire to achieve with every class you'll teach? So this sort of comes down to my teaching philosophy, or I'm going to make people itch with cringe, pedagogy. Ugh, gross, disgusting. Anyway, one thing I aspire to achieve is to have, if I could wave a magic wand and have my dream classrooms, would be that students feel like they can be their individual selves as much as they can in my classes. I struggled a lot with being myself and trying to fit the mold as a kid. Now, anyone who knows me back in those days will say bull. That's how hard I found it, because I never actually did it. And as my mum said in my 21st speech, basically fit the mold. And when it comes to secondary teaching, social connections become the utmost priority, and that's a blessing and a curse. I would like to have my students be open-minded in letting people be themselves. As simple as that. And by people, I also mean themselves. So, short answer, let kids be kids. The second question is, how do you manage behaviour management within classrooms? Okay, so this one has been a work in progress. And I even said this in my job interview. It had to take a mindset shift from realising that behaviour management isn't confrontation, even though it feels like it when you first start. Because confrontation implies that there's a power balance. You have to acknowledge how much power you have in the classroom in order to step into improving your behaviour management techniques, I feel. Because if you don't, then it can feel like you're attacking kids, you're targeting kids, things like that. Why is it always me, miss? All that sort of stuff can happen if you don't realise that, hey, in this power, I'm not more worthy, I just have more power in this instance. So that's sort of the first thing I do when I step into behaviour management techniques. Now, because I am a secondary school teacher, I can be a little bit more of a smart ass when it comes to my behaviour management techniques. And I also think that that's because of my age. I am very privileged to be a young teacher, which secondary school kids seem to relate to quicker. So yeah, I will acknowledge my privilege on that one. But I try and use non-verbal cues as much as possible, because I am a naturally loud person. So me trying to overpower these kids with loudness isn't gonna make them realize that they're doing something wrong, because I'm just a loud person. They're probably just gonna think that I'm loud. So I try and use non-verbal cues. I'll do the whole I'm waiting sort of thing. With secondary kids, I don't think people understand the power of social awkwardness. Like I said before, the social connectedness becomes top of priority. So when it's awkward, they want to fix it immediately. So just that awkward silence will get them to just fix themselves up. And then, again, especially with high school kids, I am able to say to them, if they continue to misbehave, guys, friends, you know the rules. If you keep doing this, I have to do this. And I think the biggest piece of advice came from my cousin, who's a teacher. Hi, Lizzie. It is nice for the students to know that it is not a personal attack, and it's, I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. So saying, if you keep doing this, I have to do this, instead of I'm going to do this, kind of makes them realize, hey, we're all in this together. Even though the teacher has more power, she or he or they are not more worthy than I am. Anyway, that was a big long-winded answer, and I know it's targeted specifically to secondary school kids, but I guess in terms of primary, the only difference that I would make if I were a primary teacher was to create those class rules together as the class and, have them visual, up on the walls, in pretty colours, things like that to make them eye-catching. And whenever a child's misbehaving, continuing to get them to, at whatever level that they're at, continue to read the rules and say, now, if you keep doing this, what is going to happen? And creating that metacognition. So then when they do get to high school, they are able to, work with my behaviour management. Okay, so the next question is If you reflected on your teaching style, which of your past teachers are you most like and why? Ooh, I like this question because I get to fangirl about my favourite teachers ever. So, my favourite teachers that I ever had in primary school, his name was Mr. Hamill, and it was because he was sort of the first one to sort of start my feminist queen movement because he taught me how to play AFL, Aussie Rules. And every Friday we'd go out and play footy, and he would make sure that I'm included. And, you know, it's not just boys that play sport. And unfortunately for one boy, this was really hard to understand. So I had a bit of a bullying situation, and he taught me how to stand up for myself and realize that my genitalia doesn't define my worth, sort of thing. And I can like what boys like, and boys can like what girls like. And back in, I think this would have been 2010, that was a huge thing. So yeah, he was my favorite in primary school, without a doubt. In high school, it was more senior school that I really connected with my teachers. But my one junior teacher junior school teacher I'd love to give a shout out to is Mr. Nakata. He is the one that got me into high school teaching, and he was very strict. You did not with Nakata. You did not. You know his rules and you knew to play by them. But at one parent-teacher interview where I was thinking of, you know, doing teaching, but I wasn't sure what, he said to my mum, your daughter is beyond intelligent and her mannerisms are built for secondary school and even university teaching if she wants to later in life. He's like, I don't usually put my opinion that far, but that's my opinion. And here we are. And then the last two teachers I want to mention, they were both my VCE teachers. So my VCE Year 11 maths teacher, Miss Armstrong. Oh, I love her. She was uniquely herself and she owned it. And I clicked with that instantly because I was like, yes, finally someone who's not trying to fake it in this place. But the biggest thing I liked about her, apart from her vulnerability with her class, is she would answer any question. Like, we were learning about matrices or something like that. And one kid is like, why don't we learn about taxes? And she's like, you want to learn about taxes? All right, get these questions done and we can talk about taxes. And she taught us about what taxes mean, how the maths of it works, this, that, and the rest of it. And I was like, oh my God, finally a teacher that isn't so strict on curriculum and is able to realize the power that they have to teach anything. But in the same token, if she didn't know the answer, she would say, I don't know, but let me find out. And then if it was the next day, the next week, the next month, she would run to you into the schoolyard and be like, I found the answer to your question. And you're like, I forgot I asked that, but thank you. It just showed the dedication to the career and it was really inspiring. And my VCE psychology teacher, Mr. Moyer, he has my whole heart. I would jump in front of a train for that man. He was the biggest sweetheart ever. Kind of looked like the guy from Ratatouille, just for a visual. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. He was the sweetest soul. Literally, we tried to give him gifts on our final days of psychology, and he's like, please give that to a charity. Like, give your money to a charity. He literally said that, and I was like, oh my God. Anyway, what I liked about his teaching style was that, especially with myself, I went through a lot of mental health struggles in high school, anxiety, depression, a couple of other things that I'm currently working on that I can now see affected me back then. And his classes and the way he taught and the examples he used, he made me feel normal for the first time in 6 years. And it clicked my passion for psychology and it clicked my passion for wanting to make that big of a difference in kids. So all of those teachers combined and those reasons I've tried to take on into my classroom. I guess Mr. Hamill was more of a personal journey, but and Mr. Nakata obviously got me to where I am now. But to keep the answer short, Miss Armstrong and Mr. Moyer, because of the dedication they had to answering any question and lifelong learning, as well as, you know, showing that we're all worthy of feeling normal. And yeah, that's basically who I relate to the most. This next question I think is probably the most commonly asked question to teachers, and I'm so excited to answer it because I'm a new teacher, so this is going to be probably one of the first of many times I get asked this, and I'm hoping that it changes as we go on. What is your why? Why did you choose teaching? Without getting into other people's personal lives, I have family members who were considered the naughty children in school and fell through the cracks, leading them to lives that they love because of the family that they have and the connections that they do have. But one family member I'm really close with said to me, if I could do anything in life again, it would be school because I fucked it up. But at the same time, they talk about their schooling and how their teachers made them feel. And it was very much, I don't care about you because you're being naughty. Go sit in the corner and pretend you don't exist. And I have always naturally been a child to help. For example, my first day of prep, all the kids were crying and I was supporting them, and apparently I was going, do you know how much fun we're going to have? Like, it's school. Like, it's okay. Like, I know you're going to miss them, but that's going to, you know, I know you're going to miss your parents, but that feeling's going to go away soon and it's going to be fun. And yeah, like, that's just the kind of person I was. And then when I started to get a bit more academic, I then turned that help into helping my friends with their homework or their maths problems and this, that, and the rest of it. Yeah, and so I've naturally had this thing to help, as well as being a part of a big Maltese family. I didn't realize how much this played a part into me wanting to work with kids, but in big European families, you are either the baby or the babysitter at any given time, which to some people sounds like a nightmare, but I had so much fun. When I was a little kid, my cousins taught me how to play video games, and they would always make me laugh because they'd make me feel like an adult. They make me feel like a grown up. And then when I got a little bit older, when my little cousins were born, I was, you know, showing them the world and being that goofy little kid that I was with the buck teeth and the monobrow. But yeah, I just loved every second of it. And yeah, it's, you know, I'm an only child, so to have those experiences that siblings would with their sibling, but I've had it with my cousins, showed that I really loved working with kids. So not wanting kids to feel the way that my family members have felt in the school system, the love of working with kids through my own upbringing, and I've forgotten the last point that I said. Oh, and naturally being a helper and a leader. Those are my whys. If you could change one thing about the education system, what would it be? Girl, one thing? Oh my God. This could turn into a podcast in itself, but I will try and keep it short and simple. There are so many things that I can think of, and it depends on what sort of area in the education system you're talking about. So, of course, my mind immediately went to students, but of course you can talk about teachers, which is why I've made the Teacher Detox Toolkit, because, you know, there's not very much teacher-targeted mental and emotional support, considering how much mental and emotional support they give to kids. On the Rainbow Skies for New Teachers podcast, one of their guests said that before self-regulation comes co-regulation, but that relies on the co-regulator being self-regulated. And that's what I think puts teachers in this vicious cycle of going from really passionate to wanting to leave the industry, because they're not given the tools that are needed to stay sane in an insane world. Like I said, it depends on different areas. But aside from that, I think that in terms of students, VCE, HSE, ATAR, it needs to get in the bin. Like, I know it's the best system that we've got so far in standardizing kids in terms of going to university and things like that, but just the amount of pressure kids put onto themselves on tests. Like, there are psychological experiments, researchers that have found that exams aren't the best way to, test intelligence, and yet kids are relying so heavily on it still. Like, it's bullshit to me. And I love teaching senior school, and I love teaching kids the critical thinking that comes with exam writing, because it is important in their everyday lives to be able to decode words and decode what people say. But there's so many more ways that a kid can be intelligent than just pen and paper. And I think that needs to be shown more in our senior years. So I know I've given two. I'm so bad at sticking to a question, especially when I'm in Yap City. So yeah, I guess on a teacher's perspective, it is more mental and emotional regulation tools. And for students, it is the testing system. Our final question for today. What do you think is one of the biggest challenges teachers are facing at the moment? Well, I technically just answered this, but if you'd like me to go on, if you insist. Okay, one of the biggest challenges, apart from that, mental health support, it's a tough one. There are a lot, I'll be honest. Like, one of the many reasons that I've started this podcast is to ignite and reignite passion in education. And I feel like one of the biggest challenges now and in future is the behaviour of this new generation coming through. And that doesn't mean that the parents are doing a bad job or anything like that. Like, each generation has their own parenting styles. I'm sure so many millennials and above will look at Gen Z and be like, they are disgusting. What do you mean? So yeah, it's just a thing. We're always going to judge from our perspectives. But in terms of this new generation coming through, they would have had vital parts of their schooling done in COVID, which if you even just talk to students that had, regular years, well, not regular years, but like not as fundamental years as, for example, prep or, year 7 or something like that in COVID. And it took a toll academically on them, as well as socially, emotionally, you name it. So we're going to start having kids that did, well, put it this way, the kids that did year 7 in COVID are now graduating. So right now, that's the challenge in secondary schools. There's going to be now kids going into primary schools that were born in COVID. There's going to be, in a couple years' time, high school kids that were born in COVID. We're going to be seeing a whole new dynamic. Like, all you have to look up is COVID babies in a shop, and you just see that, like, even in early childhood stages, they're different. And I hope eventually we'll be able to, as teachers, embrace those differences, but it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a weird step, because as much as you don't want to, you've got this preconceived idea of, okay, I'm teaching year 8. This is their literacy and numeracy that I should expect. We have to drop those expectations from here on in. That's my personal opinion. I would love to hear from teachers that have obviously got more experience in the classroom. What are the biggest challenges you're facing right now? Because, as much as this podcast is about new teachers, we learn from the more experienced. It's very much the student becomes the teacher. See what I did there? Yeah. Comment either on Spotify, YouTube. Hopefully I have answered your questions well enough. You know who you are that have asked them. Yeah, I've had so much fun answering these, and you guys to get to know me better. Yeah, that's it really. In terms of what I'm getting up to in the next couple of days, weeks, I'm going to be in Thailand. Ooh! I'm going to be there for 10 days, and then I'm going to Lakes Entrance with a couple of uni friends after that for a couple of days just to let my hair down. It's been a huge year, and I'm going to be living it the up before I start working full time. So I'm not too sure whether there's going to be an episode in the next fortnight. I will update you on the socials if there's not. But yeah, I am looking forward to potentially seeing you guys in the next fortnight. If not, I will see you next month. And I'm hoping to get some freebies out to you guys in the next episode. If you're a part of the community, the Facebook community page, you'll see that I have a Food for Thought Thursday. If you haven't picked it up already, that's my way of reaching out to you guys to see what you would like me to create for you guys. So, yeah, that's where we're at the moment. I am so happy with the trajectory of Stranger in the Staff Room, and I couldn't do it without you guys. Let's keep adding people to the community. Let's keep sharing the podcast with our teacher friends. Let's invite people into the Facebook community. Let's share some of my stories if you, I don't know, think they're rad and all the other cool kid words. Let's just keep spreading the love, especially when we're coming up to the holiday season. Let's spread connection. That is it for me today. Stranger in the Staff Room, over and out.
Teaching vibes were in the air, sharing knowledge everywhere, guiding young minds with such care. This is what we do.